All right, I'm here. It's the end of the session. I'm here with my buddy Cheech, and I'm not petting Cheech because Cheech does not want me to pet him. But he's so handsome, we wanted to get a little bit of him in the shot. So this is his roadmap to success. Now, this is a different session than we normally do because Cheech is very fearful. And so we did talk about the potential of using medication. Now, if you look at Cheech's body language, he's practicing something called avoidance. He's not looking at my direction. Right, Cheech? Cheech? Hey, buddy. Yeah. That's actually very good. Now, I gave him a little bit more eye contact. I probably should. I was figuring he would look at me and look away. So now I think having his druthers, he probably will move off, and I'm going to have his guardian go out, and she can go off, and you can go do what you need to do. And I'll basically summarize the stuff we did, the rest of the stuff in the session. That was the most interaction we've had, and I let him sniff me. He didn't touch me, but he's feeling good, and if he wants to get down, we're going to let him. But he had a good interaction. He moved away. That's kind of how we want to end. You always want to end on a positive. The ending of any activity is going to be the brightest memory the dog's going to have. So if you do have a guest or somebody come over and they have a good interaction, don't push it. Don't try to have that when the guest's leaving. Let me say goodbye one more time. Always end on a high note. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the things that we talked about that we didn't get a chance to actually do because of his anxiety. So the first thing we did was we talked about marker words. Now, marker word is an indicator that allows the dog to know without a doubt that they did the thing that you want. I'm going to have a video linked about this called marker words and loading the marker words. So the word I would recommend you use is yes. So what I want you to do is grab about 12 treats at a time when there's not stress. He's comfortable in the house, no guests. You're just gonna say yes, put a treat in his mouth. So he doesn't have to sit, lay down, look at you, just say yes, put the treat in his mouth. Then maybe toss a treat on the ground. Right before he looks it up, say yes. We want the yes to be followed, not yes as you deliver the treat. And walk around your house. And after a while, he should start following you around, and yes, give him a treat. But don't make him wait for it. Yes, your job is put that treat in his mouth. You want to do that about 12 treats, 6 different occasions over the course of about 2 or 3 days. And at the end of that, you should be able to say yes, and he looks up at you. When you have achieved that, you can stop loading. Loading is walking around saying yes and giving him a treat. All we're doing is building value. So yes means I'm going to look because I'm going to expect to get a treat. Once you've established the marker word, then you can start using it when he does activities that are desirable. I call this celebrating. So let's say that Cheech comes and sits right here. I would say yes and then pet him under his chin or on his chest. If he comes to me, I would say yes and pet him. If he looks me in the eye, yes and pet him or give him a treat. You can pet or treat, your choice. I usually just do it with pets though, unless there's an external stimulus or something that's stressing him out. And basically, eventually you get to the point where he comes and lays down. Yes, and I pet for that. He drinks his water. He brings you a toy. Anything that he does that you would like to make a cue or a command, or that you find desirable, say yes and pet him. This is going to make him feel comfortable and reassured. There's no doubt. I know that my humans like it when I come to them, when I sit outside the baby changing room, when I lay down, when I give them eye contact, or whatever it is. This is the absolute easiest way to train a dog, but the only way it'll work is if you do it consistently. So I want you guys to get in a habit of doing is saying celebrate to each other. So if I'm sitting here and Cheech comes and sits down next to me and I'm doing a video, I'm not paying attention, someone says celebrate, I just say yes and reach over and pet him under his chin. I don't need to know what it is, unless he doesn't like the person petting him, of course. So that's a way of us helping each other remember to celebrate the things that he does that we like. Because remember, all attention is rewarding. So if he barks and we say, no, don't bark, that's like rewarding him for barking. If he jumps up or whatever the case may be. So the more that we reward him for the actions that we do like, the more he's going to emulate those behaviors. If he does behaviors that we don't like, we really want to ignore them unless it's really urgent that we need to stop him from doing it. So now when I jump up on people, nothing happens. But if I sit in front of them, they pet me. Well, I like the petting, so I'm going to sit. And we're going to condition him to do that more and more often. Now, I also went over a recall exercise. A very simple recall exercise is to take a treat, touch it to the dog's lips, and then take a step away as you say, come, then step away. The dog's going to follow you to get that treat. When it takes one step, you say yes and release the treat. Again, do this when there's no stimulus around. This is the way to introduce the cue, means come to me and be rewarded for doing so. And so you want to practice with everything you're practicing with a lot of variety. Now for dog training, maximum 3-minute training session. But it's more important that the last repetition is a good repetition. So as soon as you get a good rep, even if you're not at 3 minutes, just stop. If you're working on stay and somebody's about to come in the door and you know the dog's gonna get up, end it early. Always end on that high note. Also, when I'm luring a dog, and all dogs learn through gesture first, then they learn through the auditory cue of sit or whatever it is. So I practice what I call the magic rubber band. If I want to lure the dog, let's say I'm the dog and I'm the handler, I'm trying to train the dog to turn my head to look at this thing. So I'm going to take a treat, touch it to his lips, and if I go like this, he stops tracking it. So imagine there's a rubber band here. So I lure, the dog doesn't go, it comes back. Eventually you're going to lure the dog to look in that direction or to lay down or to come to you or whatever it is. You always want to keep that treat against your puppy's lips or a maximum of an inch away before the rubber band pulls it back to their lips. And as soon as the dog achieves the action, say yes in a non-excited voice and don't drag your S's. As soon as the butt hits the ground, yes, release that treat. I'm going to also post a video above of how to teach your dog to sit, lay down, stand up, sit up and stand on cue. So watch that one and practice that. Practicing is like 2 to 3 minute practice sessions, 3 or more times a day is going to be ideal. For dogs that are insecure, knowing new skills can help them feel more relaxed and more comfortable. And so, because they have that confidence that comes with learning a new skill. So I'd like you to try to set a goal for, you know what, I'm going to try to teach Cheech 1 new cue a week. And so this week, maybe we're going to teach him to come. So, want to pet him? Let's spend 60 seconds practicing the recall. Let's, before we do this, let's spend another 6. Let's go practice in the other room. So you want to practice more frequently. That goes into their long-term memory. But again, keep it short. 1, 2, 3 minutes maximum, ending on a high note. Eventually, he starts following you around and coming when you call him because there's something in it for him. That's the power of positive dog training, is the dog wants to do the thing that you want. Now, his food. Right now, he eats Science Diet, which I would say is a mid-grade food. I would recommend that the Guardian goes to like Kreiser, Healthy Pet, a higher-end pet store. One that does not sell raw hides is probably going to be a good indicator for you. Raw hides are nasty. You should never give your dog raw hides. If a store sells it, might want to find a different store. I'm not going to get into that whole deal, but the idea is to find food that he likes. So ask them if they have samples. A lot of times they have little sample 1 meal packets. Get like 10 or 20 of them. And then keep the packet, feed it to him, and then give it a grade. How long did it take for him to take the first bite? How long did it take him to finish? So now you have kind of some metrics. Did he leave some food in the bowl? How much of the food did he leave in the bowl? And then if you find a protein that he really likes or a brand that he really likes, I like to find a brand, and then I rotate each bag, getting a different flavor. So that way it has the core components, but you get different flavors, so it keeps him a little bit more interesting. You might also want to try a raw diet, which is better for dogs. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's higher quality. I'd also like you to get him a lick mat. A lick mat is a silicone mat. They're usually square shapes, different shapes anyway, or different, but they're silicone, and they have like grooves or bubbles or things in it. So you smear peanut butter, cream cheese, or frozen yogurt on it, and he's got to lick it. Licking releases feel-good endorphins. So I'd like you to, and he's a small guy, so you don't have to get a big one or fill the whole thing up, but I'd like him to do that 3 or 4 times before when anybody's around. So that way, eventually, when you go through the video above, and when one of your friends actually have been outside and met him a couple times, and they go in the house, you can give him a lick mat. Give it to him on the far side of the room. Make sure it's near the entrance, so that if the human, and tell the human, look, before you get up, before you do any big movements, let me know ahead of time. And we really want to have him looking at it or have him out of the room before that stuff happens so he doesn't get spooked. But the idea is now we're sitting inside, he's licking a lick mat, releasing the feel-good endorphins into his brain, and we're building a positive association. But the steps I talked about in the video above, meeting outside, going for a walk together, having the person ignore him, are all going to be really, really important. Now, we did talk about putting him on fluoxetine, and the Guardian's going to talk to their vet about it. I'm guessing he's probably going to be on 10 milligrams of fluoxetine for about probably 4 to 6 weeks before it takes effect. And then we're going to do a follow-up session where I can come by, and maybe I will do one session where I'm just maybe break it up in twice, where I come by, take him for a little 20-minute walk, just build a little rapport, and he comes, and then bring him back home, do that again a day or 2 later, and then come back again maybe a day or 2 later and do an actual session where we work with him a little bit with the benefit of the fluoxetine and him being more comfortable with me. But remember, if he wants to run away or if he barks, he's hysterical, he's freaking out, we're going to let him do those sort of things. But for the fluoxetine, I'd like you to have a couple of benchmark tests. I would have you ask your vet, hey, can you do pull his blood work? I want to get values of the different, and I don't want to get on all the meds, but just say I want to get his liver values, anything that's going to be impacted by the medication, so that when we do put him on the medication, if later on there's a negative impact for him, we have a baseline to compare. I also like to have a couple baselines for behavior. So when Andrew comes over, he runs and hides under the bed, but then he comes out because he knows Andrew, but he's fearful of any time somebody comes to the house. So I would put a stopwatch on it and have like Andrew come by about 5 different times. Before you start the frolic scene, within the first week or so, so when he sees Andrew, how long before he runs and how long before he comes out? Figure those 2 values. And then after you figure out the average, okay, so it's an average of 180 seconds before he comes back out after going and hiding after Andrew first arrives. Then in 4 weeks, 5 weeks, what is that number? Is it the same number? If it is, we might need to adjust his dosage, which is very frequent. But usually you have to wait for about 4 to 6 weeks of testing to see if it's having an impact. That's why it's helpful to know a couple of things that if he does, that he normally chronically does it this way or this long, and then we start seeing that amount shrinks, then we know that it's working and we're probably on the right path. Now, one little tip for are you bouncing?
No.
Okay. One little tip for the sounds. He's sound sensitive. It's probably an illustration or a part of the reason is because of the cortisol he has in his blood. And so the more calm that he gets, go ahead, move whatever you need to. This is just for you. But eventually what you want to do for the sounds is I would go outside, wait, and next time you see the UPS truck in your neighborhood, usually or FedEx, usually they're a house or 2 down. If you can, run out, point your phone microphone towards it and do a video or an audio recording of it, and then bring it inside and try to get a clean recording. So it's just the truck, whoosh, the engine goes off and the door opens. That's the sound that he hears that gets him all fired up wanting to bark at stuff. So what I would do is get that sound and then play it while he's eating his food, a food that he really likes. And play it at a very low volume. If he stops eating his food, as an indication it's too intense, it's too loud. Find a volume where he will eat his food while he listens to this playing on loop. And after you do that a couple of meals, then play it a little bit louder, maybe 1 or 2 notches louder. Again, if he stops eating, it's too loud, go lower level. Eventually you want to work up to the point where it sounds like that UPS truck is driving through your living room and he's eating his food and not blinking. We're desensitizing him to that. Now, because he does also look out the window and see and bark at them, I would get some white paper. You can also go to stores and get like a frosted sticker to put on there. I don't like that because they can still see some shapes outside. I like the white paper because it allows light to come through. But you don't have to cover the whole window. Just cover the window from the bottom up until he can no longer see out the window. Remember, every time that somebody comes up, he barks at them and they leave. He thinks his barking is what made them leave. And if we yell at him to be quiet, he just thinks you're barking too. So what we want to do is, if he hears the thing, which hopefully we're going to take care of with that recording tip that I just mentioned, but if he hears the thing and he runs the window and he barks, he does not get to see them leave. Therefore, his barking does not get reinforced or rewarded, and eventually that behavior will become what we call extinguished. It will stop happening. Now, usually when we're going for extinction, there's an extinction burst. At the end, he'll bark like crazy because that's what he used to do, but that usually means you're pretty much at the end. But those are 2 things that you can do to help him. But again, I think the Prozac is going to help by turning down the anxiety levels and allowing you to work with him on some other things. And that's why I think if you pick a new cue a week, so maybe you pick, lay down 1 week, teaching him to do a circle the next week, teaching him to come consistently the 3rd week, and picking him something else. I mean, I can send you a whole bunch of stuff. Let me know if you need help. And then hand targeting. So now you've taught him 4 different cues. He's going to feel better about himself. He's pride. He's learned new skills. And that pride and that confidence is going to allow him to brush off some things that right now probably cause him to be a little bit anxious. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that we can go over, but I don't want to overwhelm you guys, and I want to make sure that we're going really deep on the stuff that we're doing for him instead of skimming along and not giving him a good foundation, because he really deserves it. He's a great dog. He's just very fearful. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. For the food, once you find a food that he likes, remember, some dogs are social eaters, so make sure you eat with him. And if he doesn't eat, don't punish him, don't get upset, even if you need him to. Just as soon as he walks away, pick up the bowl, dump the bowl empty, put the empty bowl back down. So he recognizes every time he drinks water, he sees the bowl's empty. Come by, the drink bowl's empty. Come by, the bowl's empty. Holy cow, there's food there. In the wild, dogs spend up to 90% of their time looking for food, so it's really important that we don't diminish its value by leaving it out all the time. If you take away the bowl, he looks at that as the same way. Yeah, we can go over a whole bunch of other stuff in the next session. So sorry, I'm normally packing so much stuff in here that we've gone over, but because of how fearful he was, we really needed to go at his pace. And that's something that's important. If he is trying to run away or get away from something, if it's at all possible, try not to force him to do it. One of the guardians was telling him, take him around places where he saw people, and he does well. That's great as long as he does well. If he shuts down, if you see his ears flip back, if he's licking his lips a lot, if he's yawning a lot, if he's refusing to look at you or refusing to look at things, those are cutoff signals. Those are indications he's uncomfortable. If you see sweat from his paws, it's one of the few places dogs can sweat. That's usually a sign of stress. If you see him breathing really heavily during those things, that's a sign of stress. We'd like to expose him to people, but in an environment that's outside preferably, or a large enough open space that's not too busy, so he practices being around people while being calm. If he's around too many people and it causes him to get anxious, it's going to make your problems worse. So I would prefer that you're more conservative when it comes to exposing him to new things for the short term, so that we can really build a good foundation and not worry about accidentally going too far and then having to back up and undo the work that we did. Kind of like if you're training, if you train your body and you know, sometimes you push through pain, but sometimes if you don't and you injure yourself, now you can't train at all for a couple weeks. Now you're really a deficiency. I would rather take one day where I go a little bit lighter, or cut the exercise early and not injure myself, than push through, injure myself, which my dad does all the time, and then he can't work out for a month. So for little Cheech, slow and steady is going to win the race. Well, this is Cheech's Roadmap to Success, and I'm David. And remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.